The Galactic Council chamber was filled with voices that echoed off the tall metallic walls as hundreds of species gathered for another session. Ambassador Jake Sullivan sat at the human delegation table with his arms crossed and his eyes fixed on the center platform where the Vaxxan representative was speaking. The alien's voice was sharp and filled with accusation as he pointed toward the human section of the vast circular room. "Once again, we must address the human problem," the Vaxxan said, his blue skin shimmering under the chamber lights. "They expand too quickly. They build too many ships. They colonize worlds at a rate that threatens the balance of power in this council." Jake felt his jaw tighten, but he said nothing. Beside him, Dr. Lisa Morgan was already pulling up data on her tablet, ready to counter every false claim with hard evidence. This had become routine over the past several years. Every few months, someone would stand up and complain about humanity, and every time the humans would defend themselves with facts and reason, and every time the council would pass another restriction anyway. "We propose that humanity be barred from establishing any new colonies in the Outer Rim territories," the Vaxxan continued. "Furthermore, their fleet size should be capped at current levels, and all human trade vessels should face additional inspections and tariffs." The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species nodded in agreement, while others looked uncomfortable. The humans had been part of the Galactic Council for 30 years now, and in that time they had helped rebuild war-torn worlds, shared medical technology that saved billions, and volunteered their ships to patrol dangerous trade routes that no one else wanted to guard. But none of that seemed to matter anymore. Lisa leaned over to Jake and whispered, "I have the numbers ready. Human expansion is actually slower than the Kaldar over the same period, and our fleet is defensive in nature." Jake nodded but didn't respond. He was tired of defending humanity's right to simply exist and grow like any other species. He was tired of being treated like a threat just because humans were good at solving problems. The vote was called, and Jake watched as the display board lit up with responses. Green for yes, red for no. The green lights far outnumbered the red. The motion passed by a wide margin. Humanity would be restricted, limited, and taxed more heavily than any other member species. Council Speaker Thrain, a tall creature with gray skin and wise old eyes, looked toward the human delegation. "Ambassador Sullivan, would you like to address this decision?" The chamber fell silent. Everyone expected Jake to stand up and give an impassioned speech like he always did. They expected him to appeal to their sense of fairness, to remind them of everything humanity had done for the council, to argue against the injustice of it all. Instead, Jake slowly stood up and began gathering his materials. He picked up his tablet, closed his document case, and straightened his uniform jacket. Lisa watched him with wide eyes, not sure what he was doing. Then she saw the look on his face and understood. She began packing her things too. "Ambassador Sullivan?" Thrain called again, sounding confused. Jake looked up at the speaker and then let his gaze sweep across the entire chamber. He saw faces of dozens of species, some looking smug, others looking guilty, most just looking indifferent. He took a breath and then spoke in a calm, quiet voice that somehow carried through the whole room. "No, Speaker," Jake said. "I think we're done talking." Then he turned and walked toward the exit. Lisa followed him, and so did the other 3 members of the human delegation. Their footsteps echoed in the shocked silence of the chamber. No one tried to stop them. No one said a word. The humans simply left. Within an hour of leaving the council chamber, Jake was back on his ship sending coded messages to every human delegation, colony, and outpost in council space. The message was simple and direct. "Pack up, return home, we're leaving." Captain Alex Turner received the message while his ship was docked at Centauri Station for routine maintenance. He read it twice to make sure he understood, then immediately recalled all his crew from shore leave. His crew members were scattered across the massive station, some visiting friends from other species, some shopping at the markets, some just enjoying a break from shipboard life. They all came back quickly when they got the recall order, sensing something big was happening. "Are we going to war?" his first officer asked as they prepared the ship for departure. "No," Alex said. "We're going home." On the planet Nexus Prime, engineer Nicole Hayes was working with a team of Zypherian technicians to upgrade their power grid when she got the message. She had been on Nexus for 6 months, living among the locals and teaching them how to maintain the advanced systems that humans had installed. She liked the Zypherians and they liked her, but orders were orders. She began the shutdown procedures for the human-built systems and started packing her equipment. "What's wrong?" asked her Zephyrian colleague. "Why are you shutting everything down?" "I've been recalled," Nicole said simply. "You have all the training manuals and technical documentation. You'll be able to handle it from here, but we're not ready. We still need your help." Nicole paused and looked at her colleague with sad eyes. "You'll figure it out. You're smart people. You just never had to before because we were always here to help." Across council space, the same scene was playing out in 1,000 different locations. Dr. Peter Cole, who had spent 15 years working on collaborative research projects with scientists from a dozen different species, packed up his lab on Kepler Station. Pilot Jennifer Scott brought her patrol ship back from the dangerous frontier zone, where she had been protecting merchant convoys from pirates. Teacher Gary Adams said goodbye to his alien students who had been learning about Earth history and human culture. Not one of them made a big speech or complained about the council's decision. They all just quietly packed their things and left. Some of their alien colleagues asked why, and the answer was always the same. "We're going home, time to go. Our work here is done." The speed and efficiency of the human withdrawal surprised everyone. Within 3 weeks, every human presence in council space was gone. The embassy building stood empty. The patrol routes were abandoned. The research labs were cleared out. The hospitals that had been staffed primarily by human doctors suddenly found themselves short-handed. The schools that offered human language and culture classes closed their doors. Jake stood on the bridge of his ship as it jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving council space behind. Lisa stood beside him, looking at the star charts that showed their destination. They were heading toward the outer rim, toward the very territories that the council had just barred them from colonizing. But the thing was, those territories were outside council jurisdiction. The council could make rules for their own space, but they had no authority beyond their borders. "Do you think they'll realize what they've done?" Lisa asked quietly. Jake shrugged. "Eventually. But by then it won't matter. We tried for 30 years to be good partners, to contribute, to help. We asked for nothing except to be treated fairly. They couldn't even give us that. So what do we do now?" "Now?" Jake smiled for the first time in weeks. "Now we build our own future. One where we don't have to apologize for being good at things. One where helping others doesn't make people suspicious. One where we can grow and thrive without someone always trying to hold us back." Behind them, council space grew smaller in the distance. Ahead of them lay the vast, unexplored frontier, full of possibilities and free from the politics that had poisoned their relationship with the council. Humanity was leaving not in anger but in disappointment. They had wanted to belong, to be part of something bigger than themselves. But if the price of belonging was accepting second-class status and constant restrictions, then it was better to be free and alone than accepted and limited. The council would understand this eventually. But by then, humanity would be long gone, building something new in the darkness between the stars. And they would do it without saying another word. 3 weeks had passed since the humans walked out of the council chamber, and the first real problems were beginning to show themselves in ways that no one had anticipated. The Vaxan Empire was the first to notice something seriously wrong with their infrastructure. Their planetary defense grid, which protected their 3 most important worlds from asteroid strikes and potential attacks, was showing error messages that no one on their technical team could understand. Commander Billy Rogers of the Vaxan Defense Force stared at the cascading red warnings on his screen with growing panic. The defense grid had been upgraded 7 years ago by a team of human engineers who had volunteered their time and expertise. At the time, the Vaxans had been grateful but not particularly impressed. The humans had made the systems work better, and then left detailed instruction manuals before returning to their own space. Those manuals were now open on every screen in the command center, but none of the Vaxan technicians could make sense of the advanced mathematics and engineering principles involved. "Can we call the humans back?" one of the junior technicians asked. "They're gone," Billy said flatly. "All of them. They left council space completely. Then what do we do?" Billy had no answer. The defense grid was failing, and without it, their worlds were vulnerable. He had sent urgent messages to the council requesting help, but so far no other species had the knowledge to fix human-built systems. The humans had been so far ahead in certain technologies that no one else had bothered to learn. On the trade world of Nexus Prime, merchant ships were reporting a dramatic increase in pirate attacks along the commercial routes. Captain Torval of the Zypherian Trade Guild stood in the security office looking at the incident reports with disbelief. In the past month, there had been 15 successful pirate raids on cargo vessels. In the entire previous year, there had been only 2. What changed? He demanded of his security chief. The human patrols stopped. The security chief said simply, "For the last decade, human ships have been voluntarily patrolling the trade lanes in this sector. They never asked for payment or special privileges. They just did it because they said safe trade routes benefited everyone. And now the pirates know there's no one watching. Our own security forces are stretched too thin to cover all the routes that the humans were protecting." Torval felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. He had voted in favor of restricting human expansion. He had thought humans were too aggressive, too ambitious, too dangerous. Now he was beginning to wonder if he had made a terrible mistake. At the council headquarters, Speaker Thrain called an emergency session with his senior advisors. The chamber was much smaller than the main council hall, with only a dozen representatives present. The mood was tense and worried. "We need to understand what's happening," Thrain said, his voice showing his age and stress. "Is humanity preparing for war? Are they planning to attack us?" Intelligence Chief Voran, whose species specialized in information gathering, shook his head slowly. His tentacles waved in a gesture of confusion. "No, Speaker. Our analysis shows no military buildup, no aggressive posturing, no threatening communications. They're simply withdrawing. Every human colony, outpost, research station, and vessel in council space has been evacuated." "Evacuated to where?" "To the Outer Rim, to the territories we just voted to bar them from." A Kaldar delegate spoke up, her voice concerned. "But those territories are outside our jurisdiction. We have no authority there." "Exactly," Voran said. "They're going where we can't regulate them, can't restrict them, can't limit them. They're leaving our space entirely." Ambassador Krell of the Vaxan Empire, who had led the charge against human expansion, sat quietly in his seat. He was beginning to feel the first stirrings of doubt about his actions. The reports coming in from his homeworld about the failing defense grid were deeply troubling. A Zypherian delegate raised her hand nervously. "I have a question that may seem minor, but is quite serious for my people. The hospital on our capital world was staffed primarily by human doctors and nurses. What happens to our medical care now?" There was a long silence. Finally, Voran pulled up data on his screen and read from it. "Dr. Greg Palmer and his entire medical team of 47 doctors and nurses departed from your world 3 days ago. They took their personal belongings but left all medical equipment and supplies. They also left complete training materials and patient records. Your local medical staff will have to take over." "But our people aren't trained in human medical techniques," the delegate protested. "Human medicine is 20 years more advanced than ours. They were treating diseases we didn't even know how to diagnose." "Then you'll have to learn," Voran said, not unkindly. "The knowledge is there. The humans documented everything. You just need time to study it." Around the room, delegates were pulling out their data tablets and checking their own worlds. Each one was discovering some crucial service or system that humanity had been providing and was now gone. The fusion research project on Kepler Station that had been on the verge of a breakthrough in clean energy. Production was abandoned. The lead scientist, Dr. Karen White, had packed up 15 years of research and left with her team. The project data remained, but without her expertise, the other scientists didn't know how to continue the work. The agricultural programs on 7 different worlds were in chaos. Specialist Chris Bennett had spent a decade teaching advanced farming techniques that had tripled crop yields and eliminated hunger on those planets. Now he was gone, and the local farmers were discovering that they had become dependent on his guidance. They knew how to use the new techniques but not why they worked or how to adapt them to changing conditions. The educational exchange programs that had brought thousands of young aliens to human universities were dissolved. The students were sent home with incomplete educations, and the universities they had been attending were closed to non-humans. "I don't understand," Thrain said, rubbing his face with his hands. "Why did they do all of this? What did they want from us?" No one had an answer. The humans had never demanded payment for their help. They had never asked for special privileges or favorable trade deals. They had simply shown up and started solving problems, improving systems, and helping wherever they could. And when asked why, they had always said the same thing. Because it's the right thing to do. Because we're all in this together. Because helping you helps everyone. but apparently the council had pushed them too far. The restrictions, the limitations, the constant suspicion and accusations had finally become too much. The humans had decided they didn't want to be part of a community that saw their helpfulness as a threat. A junior aide burst into the chamber, his face pale with urgency. "Speaker Thrain, we have a situation. The relay stations that provide faster-than-light communication across council space are shutting down." "What? Why?" "Because humans built and maintained them. Engineer Nicole Hayes and her team provided them as a free service to improve council communications. Now they're powering them down and removing the core components. The implications of this hit everyone at once. Without the relay network, communication between distant council worlds would be reduced to slow, outdated methods. It could take weeks to send a message that currently took minutes. The entire council infrastructure depended on instant communication." Thrain stood up quickly. "Contact the humans immediately. Tell them we need to negotiate. Offer them whatever they want to maintain essential services." Voran looked up from his screen with bad news written all over his face. "I've been trying to reach them, Speaker. All human vessels have left council space. All their embassies are closed. All their communication channels are offline. We have no way to contact them. Then send a ship to follow them. Send ambassadors to their new settlements." "I'll try, Speaker, but they're moving fast and they're going far. By the time we find them, they may be too distant to reach easily." Krelix finally spoke up, his voice much quieter than usual. "This is my fault. I pushed for those restrictions. I convinced others that humans were a threat. I thought we were protecting the council from human aggression. But I was wrong. The humans weren't aggressive. They were just better than us at many things, and I was afraid of that." The room fell silent. It was rare for any delegate to admit such a mistake so openly. Thrain looked at him with sad eyes. "You weren't alone in this. Many of us voted for those restrictions. We all saw the data showing how much humans contributed to council space. We all knew they were helping us. But we let fear overcome gratitude. We let politics override reason, and now we're paying the price." Over the next several days, more problems emerged. The medical crisis deepened as hospitals struggled without human doctors. The security crisis worsened as pirate attacks became bolder. The technology crisis expanded as more human-maintained systems began to fail. The communication crisis slowed down council operations to a crawl, and through it all, humanity remained silent. They didn't gloat, didn't threaten, didn't demand apologies. They simply continued their steady exodus into the frontier, building new colonies on worlds far from council space, establishing their own networks, creating their own systems. They were moving on with their lives as if the council no longer existed. 6 months had passed since humanity's silent departure, and the Galactic Council was facing the worst crisis in its 1,000-year history. Speaker Thrain stood before the main council chamber, trying to maintain order as hundreds of representatives shouted over each other in panic and anger. The once dignified assembly had descended into chaos as each species reported new disasters affecting their worlds. "Order," Thrain called out, his voice amplified by the chamber's sound system. "We must maintain order." But no one was listening. A Kaldar delegate was screaming about mass starvation on his homeworld. A Zypherian representative was demanding military protection from pirates who had taken over 3 entire trade routes. A Vaxxan official was explaining how their defense grid had completely failed last week, leaving them vulnerable for the first time in decades. Thrain finally slammed his staff against the floor 3 times, the loud banging echoing through the chamber and shocking everyone into silence. "We will hear reports one at a time. We will remain calm. We will find solutions. Now who wants to speak first?" The Kaldar delegate stood up, his hands shaking as he held his data tablet. "The Kaldar sector is experiencing mass starvation. Our agricultural output has dropped by 70% in the last 6 months. Human agricultural specialists taught us farming techniques that tripled our yields. But now those systems are failing, and we don't know how to fix them." "You have the training materials that the humans left behind," someone pointed out. "Yes, we have the materials," the Kaldar delegate said bitterly. "Thousands of pages of technical information written in ways we don't fully understand. We have the knowledge but not the expertise. We know what to do but not why it works or how to adapt when conditions change. We need teachers and we need them now, but the humans are gone." A Zypherian delegate stood next. "Piracy in our sector has increased by 700%. Our merchant ships are being attacked daily. Our security forces are overwhelmed. The human patrol ships that used to protect our trade lanes are gone, and we don't have the resources to replace them. Why did the humans patrol your trade lanes? Thrain asked, though he already knew the answer. We never asked them to. They just did it. They said safe trade routes benefited everyone in the council, so they volunteered their ships and crews. They never asked for payment. They never demanded favors. They just helped because they thought it was the right thing to do. The chamber fell quiet as the weight of that statement sank in. The humans had done so much without being asked, without expecting anything in return, and the council had responded by treating them as a threat. Ambassador Krelix remained in his seat, his head down, unable to meet anyone's eyes. The Vaxan Empire was suffering more than most. Their defense grid was completely offline now. Their power systems were failing. Their medical facilities were operating at a fraction of normal capacity, all because human engineers and doctors and technicians were no longer there to maintain the advanced systems they had built and installed. Commander Billy Rogers stepped forward to give his report on the military situation. His voice was steady, but his face showed the stress he was under. Our analysis of human contributions over the past 30 years reveals something we should have seen sooner. Humans were responsible for approximately 60% of all technological advancement in Council space during that period. They didn't just improve our systems, they revolutionized them. Explain, Thrain said quietly. Take our communication networks. Before humans arrived, it took days to send messages between distant worlds. Humans built the relay stations that reduced that time to minutes. They didn't sell us the technology. They just built it and gave it to us for free. They said better communication helped everyone. Billy pulled up more data on the chamber's main display. Look at medical technology. Human doctors introduced treatments that cut mortality rates by 40% across dozens of species. They shared their medical knowledge freely and trained thousands of alien doctors. They didn't charge for this. They just did it. What about military technology? Someone asked. That's the interesting part, Billy said. Humans barely shared any military technology with us. Their defensive capabilities are far beyond what we have, but they kept that knowledge to themselves. They only shared things that helped civilians, that improved quality of life, that made peace more sustainable. They gave us everything that could help us live better, and nothing that could help us wage war better. The implications of this were clear to everyone. The humans hadn't been building a military threat. They had been building a more peaceful, prosperous council, and the council had responded by restricting them. A new voice spoke up from the back of the chamber. It was a young Meridian delegate who had only recently joined the council. I have a question that might be uncomfortable, but I think we need to ask it. What did humans gain from all this help they gave us? There was a long silence. Finally, Thrain answered, Nothing. They gained nothing material. No wealth, no territory, no power. They just wanted to be accepted as equals, to be part of the council community, to contribute to something bigger than themselves. And we responded by trying to limit them, the young Meridian said softly. We saw their success and called it aggression. We saw their helpfulness and called it interference. We were given a gift and we threw it away because we were afraid. Thrain pulled up a communication on his personal screen, and his face went pale as he read it. I'm receiving reports from border stations. Humanity has formally established 7 independent colonies in the Outer Rim. They're building settlements, establishing trade routes, and making contact with species beyond our borders. They're creating their own civilization completely separate from the Council. Can we stop them? Krelix asked weakly. No, Thrain said. Those territories are outside our jurisdiction. We have no legal authority there. We told them they couldn't expand in our space, so they left our space entirely. They followed our rules right up until the moment they walked away. A communication request came through on the chamber's main screen. It was flagged as coming from the human frontier territories. Everyone fell silent as Thrain accepted the request. Captain Jake Sullivan appeared on the screen. He was sitting at a desk with windows behind him, showing a construction site where huge ships were building something massive in orbit around a new colony world. He looked calm and professional, showing no anger or bitterness. Speaker Thrain, Jake said politely, I'm transmitting a message that was sent several weeks ago. Due to the distance and communication delays, you're just receiving it now. Ambassador Sullivan, please. We need to talk about the situation, Thrain said quickly. But Jake continued as if he hadn't heard. because the message was pre-recorded and he wasn't actually there to respond. You asked what we wanted. You asked why we did all the things we did for the council. The answer is simple. We wanted to be partners. We wanted to contribute. We wanted to help. We didn't ask for special treatment or preferential deals. We just wanted to be treated as equals. Jake paused and looked directly at the camera. Instead, you saw our helpfulness as aggression. You saw our growth as a threat. You saw our success as something that needed to be limited. Every time we tried to contribute, you responded with suspicion. Every time we grew, you responded with restrictions. We spent 30 years trying to be good members of this council, and you spent the last 5 years trying to put us in a box. The chamber was completely silent. Every delegate was focused on the screen, hearing words they needed to hear but didn't want to face. We're not angry, Jake continued. We're just done. You made it clear how you see us, so we're leaving you to the galaxy you wanted. A galaxy without human interference, without human contributions, without human help. We hope you figure out how to maintain the systems we built. We hope you learn from the knowledge we shared. But we won't be coming back to hold your hand through it. The transmission ended and the screen went dark. The silence in the chamber was absolute. For a long moment, no one moved or spoke. Then slowly, the weight of what they had done began to truly sink in. A senior Zephyrian delegate stood up, her voice shaking with emotion. We had everything we needed for peace and prosperity. We had partners who genuinely wanted to help us. We had allies who asked for nothing but fairness. And we drove them away because we were too proud to accept help, too afraid to see them as equals, too short-sighted to recognize what we had. Can we fix this? Someone asked. Can we bring them back? Thrain looked at the empty human seats and slowly shook his head. I don't know. The humans I knew were patient and forgiving. They tried for 30 years to make this partnership work. But there's a limit to how much rejection anyone can take. We didn't just pass a few unfair laws. We made them feel unwelcome in their own home. We told them they weren't wanted. And now they found a place where they are wanted, where they can grow without restriction, where their help is appreciated instead of feared. So what do? Krelix asked, finally looking up. We try to contact them, Thrain said. We send ambassadors. We offer apologies. We propose new terms. We do everything we can to make this right. But we also need to accept that they might say no. The Galactic Council's attempts to contact humanity became increasingly desperate as the months wore on and the crisis deepened across their territories. Speaker Thrain had personally authorized 6 separate diplomatic missions to the human frontier settlements, each one carrying offers of reconciliation and renewed partnership. Each one had returned with the same result: polite rejection. The Zephyrian ambassador stood before Thrain's private office, just returned from the latest failed mission. Her name was Sela, and she looked exhausted from the long journey to the edge of known space and back. She held a data tablet with her mission report, but seemed reluctant to deliver the news. Tell me, Thrain said gently. What did they say? Sela sat down heavily in the chair across from his desk. They were polite, Speaker. That's what made it worse. They weren't angry or vengeful. They were just firm. The human border station commander, Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, met with me personally. She listened to everything I had to say. She accepted the official council documents I brought, and then she said no. What exactly did she say? Sela pulled up the recording on her tablet. Sarah Mitchell's voice was calm and professional. Ambassador Sela, please convey to the council that we appreciate their interest in renewed diplomatic relations. However, after careful consideration, the human government has decided to decline all proposals for rejoining council space. We wish the council well, but our path forward lies elsewhere. Thrain closed his eyes. Did you tell her about the crises we're facing? The starvation, the pirate attacks, the system failures? I did, Sela said. I explained everything. I told her that thousands of people are suffering. I begged her to at least consider sending technical advisors or medical personnel on a temporary basis. Do you know what she said? What? She said that all technical documentation and training materials were left behind when humanity departed. She said the knowledge is there and we have the capability to learn it. She said it will take time and effort, but we can solve these problems ourselves. Then she suggested that perhaps this experience would teach us to value the people who help us. Thrain felt a cold weight settle in his chest. The humans weren't refusing to help out of cruelty. They were refusing because they believed the council needed to learn to stand on its own, to stop depending on others to solve their problems. It was a harsh lesson, but not an unfair one. What about the hospital situation? Thrain asked. Did you mention that people are dying because we lack human medical expertise? Sela nodded. I mentioned the hospital on my homeworld specifically. I told her that Dr. Greg Palmer had built that facility from nothing, that he had trained our doctors, that thousands of lives were saved because of his work. I told her that without him, we're losing patients we could have saved. And she looked sad when I said that. I think it genuinely bothered her. But she still said no. She said that medicine is a learnable skill, that we have access to all the medical texts and procedures that human doctors used, and that while people might suffer in the short term, in the long term, we would be better off having our own doctors with our own expertise rather than depending on humans forever. Thrain stood and walked to his window, looking out at the council complex below. Ships from dozens of species came and went, conducting the business of galactic civilization. But everything felt smaller now, diminished somehow. The absence of humanity had created a void that no one else could fill. The other missions reported similar results, Thrain said. Every human outpost gave them the same message. Polite but firm refusal. No anger, no demands, just a simple no. They've moved on, Speaker, Sela said quietly. They're building their own civilization out there in the frontier. From what I could see at the border station, they're doing well. Very well. They have 7 major colonies already, with more under construction. They're trading with species we've never even made contact with. They're establishing their own networks and systems. They don't need us anymore. A communication alert interrupted them. It was from Captain Alex Turner, who had been leading another diplomatic mission to a different human settlement. Thrain accepted the call and Alex's face appeared on the screen. He looked frustrated. Speaker, I've just returned from New Horizons Station, Alex said. I met with Commander Jake Sullivan personally. And? He was very clear. Humanity has no interest in rejoining the Council or resuming any formal relationship with Council space. I tried everything. I offered full membership with no restrictions. I offered equal representation on the High Council. I offered trade agreements favorable to human interests. I even offered a formal apology from the entire Council. He declined it all. Thrain felt his hope fading. Did he say why? He said something that I think you need to hear, Speaker. He said that we're not missing humanity. We're missing what humanity did for us. He said we didn't want them as equals, we wanted them as useful subordinates. He said that when they stopped being useful on our terms, we want them back, but that's not partnership, that's exploitation. The words hit like a physical blow. Jake was right and they all knew it. The Council had been happy to accept human help, human technology, human expertise as long as humans stayed in their designated place and didn't grow too powerful or too influential. The moment humans started to succeed on their own terms, the Council had responded with fear and restrictions. Is there nothing we can offer them? Thrain asked, hearing the desperation in his own voice. I don't think so, Speaker. Jake showed me around New Horizons Station. It's incredible. They're building something bigger and better than anything in Council space. They have allies from species we don't even know about. They have technology that's advancing faster than ours. They have freedom to grow and explore without political interference. Why would they give that up to come back to a place that treated them poorly? The call ended and Thrain sat back down at his desk. Sela was still there, watching him with sympathetic eyes. We lost them, Thrain said. Not because they hate us, but because they've found something better. They've found a place where they're appreciated, where they can thrive, where they don't have to constantly defend their right to exist and grow. What do we do now? Sela asked. We learn to survive without them. We study the materials they left behind. We train our people. We solve our own problems. It will take years, maybe decades, but we have no other choice. Meanwhile, far beyond Council space, Sarah Mitchell stood at her post on the human border station, watching another Council ship turn away after being denied entry. She felt conflicted about the policy of refusing all contact with the Council. Part of her wanted to help, wanted to send medical teams or technical advisors, wanted to ease the suffering that she knew was happening in Council space. But another part of her understood why humanity had to stay away. If they went back now, if they helped again, the Council would never learn. They would never appreciate what they had. They would just fall back into the same patterns of taking human help for granted, while simultaneously resenting human success. Her commanding officer, Colonel Ryan Brooks, came to stand beside her. Another one? he asked, nodding toward the departing council ship. Another one, Sarah confirmed. They're persistent, I'll give them that. Do you think we're doing the right thing? Sarah was quiet for a moment. I think we're doing the necessary thing. For 30 years, humans tried to be good partners. We helped, we contributed, we shared everything we had, and the council responded by trying to limit us, restrict us, keep us small. If we go back now, nothing will change. They'll accept our help, but they'll still fear our growth. They'll take what we give, but they'll never see us as equals. So we stay out here and build our own future, Ryan said. Exactly. We build something where helpfulness is appreciated, where success is celebrated, where no one tries to hold us back because they're afraid we're getting too strong. We build the kind of civilization we wanted to be part of, but the council couldn't give us. On New Horizon Station, Jake Sullivan sat in his office reviewing the latest construction reports. The station was growing rapidly, becoming the hub of human civilization in the frontier. Ships came and went constantly, bringing supplies, new colonists, and reports from the expanding network of human settlements. His assistant, Daniel Brooks, brought him the daily summary of communications from council space. More diplomatic requests, more offers, more attempts at reconciliation. Jake read through them quickly and then filed them away without responding. They're not going to stop asking, Daniel observed. Probably not, Jake agreed, but the answer won't change. We gave them 30 years of partnership, and they spent the last 5 of those years trying to put us in a box. You don't get to do that and then act surprised when we decide we'd rather be free. Some people think we should at least send medical aid or technical advisors, just on humanitarian grounds. Jake shook his head. I understand that impulse. I really do. But if we help them now, we'll be helping them forever. They'll never learn to be self-sufficient. They'll never value what we gave them because they'll expect us to always be there to fix their problems. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let someone struggle and learn. He looked out the window at the vast construction project visible in the distance. A full year had passed since humanity's silent departure, and the Galactic Council was still struggling with the consequences of their decision. The cascading failures had been addressed to some degree through emergency measures and hard work, but nothing was the same as it had been when humans were part of council space. Everything worked less efficiently, less smoothly, less well. Speaker Thrain sat alone in his private office late at night, unable to sleep. He had spent the evening reviewing historical records of humanity's time in the council, watching old footage and reading old reports. What he found was deeply troubling because it showed clearly what everyone had missed while it was happening. The first human delegation had arrived 30 years ago with genuine excitement and hope. They had been eager to join the galactic community, to learn from other species, to share what they knew. The early records showed humans asking questions constantly, trying to understand how things worked, offering suggestions politely, always seeking to contribute. Thrain watched footage of the first trade agreement negotiations. The human representative had been so careful to ask for fair terms, not favorable ones, just equal treatment, the same rates and conditions that other species received. They had been almost apologetic about it, as if afraid of asking for too much. Then he watched later footage from 10 years ago, when humans had begun to be seen as a problem. The council meetings had started including regular complaints about human expansion, human technology, human success. Thrain watched himself in those old recordings, nodding along with the concerns, agreeing that perhaps humans needed to be watched more carefully, voting for the first minor restrictions. What had changed? Not the humans. They had continued to be helpful, continued to contribute, continued to ask for nothing but fair treatment. What had changed was the council's perception. As humans became more successful, other species became more nervous. As humans solved more problems, other species began to feel inadequate. As humans grew, other species felt threatened. There was a soft knock at his door. "Come in," Thrain called. Ambassador Krelix entered, looking older than he had a year ago. The stress of the past months had aged him, and the guilt he carried showed in his posture. He sat down across from Thrain without being invited, something he would never have done before. "I can't sleep either," Krelix said simply. "I keep thinking about what I did." "We all played our part in this," Thrain replied. "You weren't alone, but I led the charge. I was the one who kept bringing forward restrictions and limitations. I convinced others that humans were a threat. Krelix pulled out his data tablet and showed Thrain something he had been working on. I've been analyzing economic data from the past 30 years. Do you want to know what I found? Tell me. Humans asked for fair terms in trade agreements, not favorable ones. They asked for equal representation, not special privileges. They asked for the same rights to expansion that every other council species had, not unlimited growth. They asked for nothing more than what we already gave to everyone else. And in return, they gave us medical technology that saved billions of lives, engineering solutions that increased productivity across council space by 40%, agricultural techniques that eliminated hunger on dozens of worlds, and security patrols that made trade safer than it had been in centuries. Thrain closed his eyes. I know. They gave us everything and asked for nothing but equality. Krelix continued, his voice breaking slightly. And we responded by trying to make them smaller, weaker, less capable. We saw their competence and called it aggression. We saw their helpfulness and called it interference. We saw their success and felt threatened rather than grateful. Why did we do it? Thrain asked, though he already knew the answer. Fear, Krelix said simply. We were afraid of how quickly they grew, how capable they were, how they seemed to solve problems that we had struggled with for generations. We were afraid that they would become more powerful than us, more influential, more important. So we tried to hold them back before they could outgrow us. And they left. Yes. They tried for 30 years to be good partners, and we couldn't give them even basic respect. So they left and found somewhere they could be appreciated. A priority communication alert interrupted them. It was marked urgent and came from the Council's border monitoring stations. Thrain accepted it, and Captain Sarah Mitchell's face appeared on the screen. She was wearing her human military uniform and looked very professional and formal. Speaker Thrain, Ambassador Krelix, she greeted them both. I'm sending this communication to inform you that the human government has completed its territorial consolidation in the frontier regions. All Council requests for renewed diplomatic relations have been formally declined through official channels. However, I'm authorized to inform you that humanity will honor existing humanitarian agreements and will respond to genuine emergency situations that threaten civilian lives. Captain Mitchell, Thrain said, leaning forward desperately, please convey to your government that the Council recognizes its errors. We treated humanity unfairly, and we understand now what we've lost. If there's any possibility of reconciliation, any terms we can offer, any way to make things right, please tell us. Sarah was quiet for a moment, seeming to choose her words carefully. Speaker, with respect, you're not missing humanity. You're missing what we did for you. You didn't want us as equals. You wanted us as useful subordinates who would help you, but never grow beyond the limits you set. When we stopped being useful on your terms, when we refused to stay small and limited, you want us back. But that's not partnership. That's not equality. That's exploitation. The words were harsh but true. Krelix looked down at his hands, unable to meet Sarah's gaze even through the screen. What can we do? Thrain asked, his voice barely above a whisper. How can we make this right? Sarah's expression softened slightly. You can learn from this, Speaker. The next species you encounter that shows initiative and capability, treat them better than you treated us. Let them grow. Trust them. Welcome their success instead of fearing it. Don't wait until they leave to realize what you had. And is there no hope for us? For humanity and the Council? Someday maybe, Sarah said. When enough time has passed. When we've both grown and changed. When we can meet as true equals. Independent civilizations with mutual respect. But not now. Right now, humanity needs to focus on building our own future. One where we don't have to apologize for being good at things. Where we don't have to limit ourselves to make others comfortable. Where we can thrive without constant suspicion and restriction. The transmission ended and the office fell silent. Krelix stood up slowly, his movements those of an old, tired person. I'm going to resign my position tomorrow, he said quietly. I don't deserve to represent my people after what I led them into. No, Thrain said firmly. You need to stay. We all need to stay and work to fix what we broke. Resigning would be the easy way out. Staying and working to make things better. Learning from our mistakes, teaching others not to repeat them, that's the hard path. That's what we owe to everyone who's suffering because of our decisions. Krelix looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You're right. We need to fix this even if we can never get the humans back. Far beyond Council space, In the human frontier territories, Jake Sullivan stood in the observation deck of New Horizon Station watching ships come and go. The station had become the bustling center of a new human civilization, one that was growing rapidly and making connections with species across the unexplored regions of space. Dr. Lisa Morgan joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed him one and stood beside him, watching the same view. A Kelvin transport ship was docking at one of the station's many ports. The Kelvins were one of the new species that humans had encountered in the frontier, and they had quickly become close allies. The council sent another delegation today, Lisa said. Colonel Brooks sent them away as usual. Good, Jake replied, sipping his coffee. Did they offer anything new? Full council membership with no restrictions, equal representation, formal apologies, and favorable trade terms. Lisa smiled slightly. Everything we originally asked for, plus more. Too little, too late, Jake said without anger. We're not interested in being part of their system anymore. We've built something better out here. Do you ever feel bad about refusing them? I mean, people are suffering in council space because we're not there to help. Jake was quiet for a moment, considering the question seriously. Sometimes. But then I remember that we helped them for 30 years and they responded by trying to limit us. If we go back now and help them again, what lesson does that teach? That they can treat us badly and will always come running back when they need us? That's not healthy for them or for us. So we let them struggle. We let them learn to be self-sufficient. We left them all the knowledge and tools they need. What they're lacking is not information, but experience and confidence. They need to learn that they can solve their own problems, that they don't need humans to do everything for them. In the long run, that will be better for everyone. A young technician approached them nervously. Commander Sullivan, we have visitors requesting permission to dock. They're from a species called the Meridians.